Hey guys, welcome back to Wentworth Life, the channel that's been bringing you Wentworth content since 2017. If you are new to the channel, then please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Okay, so we are up to Wentworth, Season 3, Episode 10, A Higher Court. I was always really excited when we were getting closer to the season final. I can remember when there were rumours about a big Wentworth fire, rumours about Frankie being killed off, and it was just such an exciting time for Wentworth. So when the episode begins, Frankie is put onto cleaning duties and she's cleaning the corridor where she accidentally murdered Meg Jackson. Now Frankie starts to get flashes of what happened and she even sees Meg's dead body on the ground. Will then comes to get Frankie because Governor Ferguson wants to see him, and it's actually really interesting when Frankie goes to walk towards the area where Meg was killed. Will ends up telling Frankie, no, we're not going that way, we are going this way. Now this indicates to me that Will literally avoids that area of where Meg died if he can help it going forward, and it's just, oh, poor Will, bless him. Joan tells Frankie that her parole has been brought forward to tomorrow morning. And Frankie gets into a little bit of a panic because, you know, she's not prepared anything. And she's also a little bit concerned that Joan hasn't informed Bridget. But fear not, Frankie. Vera actually does the right thing in this episode. She ends up meeting up with Bridget in a coffee shop where she apologizes about getting her sacked and says that she now knows that Bridget has been right about Joan Ferguson all along, and Vera tells Bridget about Frankie's parole hearing being brought forward. Well done, Vera. Meanwhile, Frankie spends the first half of this episode trying to prepare her speech, but Kim Chang, she ends up being a total pain in the ass when she ends up planting drugs in Frankie's cell out of pure spite and jealousy. Now Frankie catches Kim running out of her cell and Frankie knows she's done something, so her and B, they end up finding drugs and they try to flush them down the toilet just as a cell search is about to commence, but one of the little balloons doesn't flush and Frankie is forced to crutch it inside her. Fletcher believes that Frankie has hidden something and Joan orders Frankie to be slotted until she agrees to a full body search. Now, first of all, what a bitch Kim Chang is in this episode. Just because Frankie has moved on and just because Kim broke parole on purpose to be with Frankie doesn't mean Frankie is in the wrong here. Literally, what a bitch. Pure spite and nastiness. So, Frankie is in the slot and there are 24-hour cameras checking her out, and during the night time, Frankie ends up positioning herself onto the bed, you know, where the camera can't see her, removing that little balloon out of her and then putting it inside her mouth, and she ends up swallowing it. Desperate times call for desperate measures, guys. So the next day, Frankie agrees to the body search, but Joan is straight onto those security cameras because, you know, Joan loves a security camera. She loves spying on people. Joan notices what Frankie did. Joan ain't stupid, and she knows that Frankie has now put herself in danger because you all remember what happened to Sue Young in Season 2. Whoa, talk about a stressful 24 hours before your parole hearing. Now Frankie ends up asking Boomer for some vegetable oil and Boomer realizes what Frankie has actually done. Now don't forget, Boomer hasn't been Frankie's friend, not since the whole steam press incident, and this is the first time Boomer shows some genuine concern for Frankie, and she ends up telling B about what Frankie has done. So B tries to force Frankie to go and see the nurse and tell the truth, but Frankie refuses. She would literally rather risk death than admit that she has a balloon of heroin in her guts and lose her parole and be stuck in prison for even longer. Just to add a little bit more edge of your seat moments, Will Jackson ends up receiving a package that has a USB stick inside it. Now when Will plugs the stick into his laptop, there is a file called Meg Jackson, and it's a voice recording. Oh my god, I was so nervous when I first saw this because I knew what this voice recording was going to be. It is indeed the voice recording of Frankie admitting that she had killed Meg Jackson, and just look at Will's eyes. Oh my god, they completely change to thunder when he listens to it. He is furious. He thought he'd put all of that stuff to bed ages ago, and he believed that the killer was Jacqueline Holt. So Will slams down his laptop and he storms over to his motorbike, and he literally speeds off, breaking the speed record towards the prison. Will is looking really angry in this scene, and I always think to myself that if Will was storming over to me right at that very moment, I would fucking run. So, Frankie is at the parole hearing and Bridget is there and she sits next to Joan. Frankie then does her speech and it's all going really, really well, but then something starts to happen to Frankie. And I can remember thinking, oh my god, the bag has burst. She's gonna die. She's gonna drop down dead. But then I realised that actually that cooking oil that Frankie had been drinking to help flush out that balloon has probably started doing its job. So Frankie, she has a really bad stomach ache and she was starting to sweat, and it was quite uncomfortable to watch because, you know, we've all been there when our stomachs kick off and we need to get to the bathroom super quick. The parole board people take on board everything that Frankie has said. Bridget makes a really awesome, great speech for Frankie, and even Joan doesn't say no to, you know, any objections to, you know, Frankie having her parole. So Frankie is free to leave the meeting, even though the parole people, they can see that Frankie is a little bit unwell at the moment. But as Frankie is heading back to her unit, Will ends up grabbing Frankie and dragging her down the corridor. He's super angry. He throws her to the ground and he then pins her up against the wall, telling her that he knows what she's done. He knows it was her, but he wants Frankie to admit it right to his face. And Frankie does. She pretty much does admit to it, but she does tell him that it was an accident. She didn't mean it. Meanwhile, Joan is in her office watching all of this unfold on camera. She's hoping that Will is about to kill Frankie, which would mean that Frankie is no more and Will is going to head straight for prison. But things don't go Joan's way. Will ends up punching the wall and he then ends up throwing a massive pinboard down the corridor, and he just ends up collapsing on the floor in tears, with Frankie saying that she is sorry. You know, she says, "I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson." Now this really pisses Joan off, and she ends up throwing her pencils across the office. Now you know things aren't going well for Joan when she throws her pencils around, because she likes everything neat and tidy. It just always makes me laugh, this scene. So what does this mean for Frankie now? Well, Will doesn't actually say anything after this. Nothing else happens. Frankie just goes back to her unit so she can finally have her poop. How on earth Frankie managed to hold on to that shit inside her while Will was throwing her around and going for her? Gosh, fair play, that is some good clenching. Now B ends up getting Jess Warner to fish the drugs out of Frankie's poop. So basically Fletcher was getting the blame for these drugs that had come in through the kitchen, and B wanted to help Fletcher. And what she does is she gets Jess to fish out the balloon from the toilet, and she then plants it onto Kim Chang because, you know, Kim planted it on Frankie. What goes around comes around. In fact, there is an amazing scene where B goes to see Kim in the yard with Maxine, and B ends up grabbing Kim and goes proper brutal on her, telling her that she is coming for her when she least expects it. And I just flipping love it. This is the B Smith that I just love. I did forget to mention that when the drugs first came into the prison, Cindy Lou was found in the shower block dead by Kim Chang. That's how she got the drugs and stuff. And but yeah, Cindy Lou, she died from a needle in her arm, and that's it. Bye bye, Cindy Lou. Now, when Jess fished the drugs out of Frankie's poop, she didn't give the whole supply to B. Oh no. Jess ended up keeping some back, but what does Jess have planned with these drugs? Oh, crazy bitch. In fact, Jess steps her evilness up a gear in this episode because Doreen, she almost ends up handing baby Joshua out to her sister because, you know, Doreen is scared for her baby's safety. And there was a moment where Doreen thought that Joan had drugged her tea and a biscuit for some reason. I think Doreen was being a little bit paranoid, but, you know, it is what it is. Doreen ends up changing her mind though. You know, she can't hand her baby out. She needs baby Joshua with her. But when Jess finds out that Doreen nearly gave baby Joshua to her sister, Jess is not impressed, and she tells Doreen that she can't believe that she nearly did that. Joshua is our baby. And Doreen is like, hold up, hold up, hold up. This is my baby. She ain't your baby. You need to rein it in, Jess, you know, just rein it in just a little bit. But Jess, she ends up going up to Rose, the nurse, and plants a seed saying that Doreen is really struggling with baby Joshua, insinuating that Joshua is not safe with Doreen. What a bitch. Jess was really up in her sick and twisted game in this episode, and I was not okay with it. Back over to B, and I love the start of this episode where she ends up cutting the side of her hair and she turns around and she looks at the sketch of Joan that she has made, and B just looks like a warrior. I flipping love it. This is B Smith at her very, very best. I only wish that we had got another season of B like this, because you know what happens in season 4, guys. B's time was cut way too short, but more on that in future videos. The episode ends in a really nice way for a change. Frankie goes to see Liz and the pair of them end up making up, which is about flipping time. Frankie and Liz, they end up hugging on Liz's bed, and Frankie is crying in Liz's arms, and oh, it's just such a beautiful moment. It always brings tears to my eyes when I watch it, and it's so lush to finally see these two back friends again. As Frankie once said herself, Liz was like a mum to her. Frankie then goes to sit with the other women in the unit where they're all like having a laugh and a giggle. I think they're probably watching something on TV, and yeah, Frankie really turned a corner in this episode. I was really worried though about these rumours at that time about Frankie being killed in a fire. I honestly thought that this is where it was all heading. I was so nervous. You know what the writers of Wentworth are like. Yeah, I literally thought it was gonna happen. So another solid episode, a lot of revelations, and Joan is continuing to lose herself. My favourite part of this episode has to be Will discovering that it was Frankie who killed his wife. It's a reveal that took a very long time and it did not disappoint. My least favourite moment shouldn't come as a shock, but it's definitely Jess trying to make out that Doreen is a dangerous mother. Once again, what a bitch. But let's hear some of your thoughts. What did you guys think of this episode? Cast your minds back, guys. Do you remember hearing the rumours that Frankie was apparently going to be killed off in the season finale? And were you concerned about this? Let me know everything, guys, in the comments box below. Okay then, guys. Well, thank you all for watching today's video. Make sure you smash that subscribe button. Stay safe out there, and I will see you all again very, very soon.